We're here in Austria for the final rehearsals of American Lulu before it opens at the Bregenz festival. My name's Kenan Malik, and this is one of two films through which I want to introduce the opera and its themes and its relevance to the contemporary world. Oldenburg's Lulu is one of the masterpieces of 20th century opera. It tells the story of the rise and fall of the eponymous heroine, a woman of limitless sexual allure who becomes the architect of her own downfall. It's an ironic critique of the age of decadence.
I can't get in, come on!
Shall I get your hand for you?
Is it really not?
They are playing.
In American Lulu, the Austrian composer Olga Neuwirth has reworked Berg's original, transposing the action to the American South in the 1950s and rescoring the music, giving it a more jazzy American feel. Olga Neuwirth is one of the most important contemporary composers whose signature is their ability to blend together, merge different styles from atonalism to jazz, from electronic to chamber. How do you go about reworking a work like Berg's Lulu? Is it like editing a piece, or is it more like starting from scratch, starting from the beginning and making it anew?
Well, first you have to dare doing it, and on the second hand you have to, one hand, forget it, as you would start from zero. On the second hand, on the second way of thinking, of course, is there is a big masterpiece, and you have to take care of it somehow and not destroy it, because I didn't want to destroy Alban Berg. That's not what was my idea. But the idea is, what does Lulu mean for us maybe nowadays, and therefore it is like a new piece in a way. But of course, like in the tradition also of Austrian painters, you have a full starting point which is already there, and you try to overlay it with your own way of thinking, or your way of thinking your own art. So it becomes a bipolar person, I would say.
My free spirit!
There's an interesting disconnect in your version between the story and the historical background. In a sense, the historical background, the background of the civil rights movement, of the struggle for black rights in America, is key to the opera.
Yes.
And yet there's a disconnect between the story and that background, so that that struggle doesn't touch upon the story directly, and all the characters, Lulu in particular, seem fairly oblivious to the social ferment all around them. Is that what you were aiming at, to kind of disconnect between the wider story you're telling and the particular story of Lulu?
Yeah, I think first I wanted to tighten the story and put it in a more complex social background, to enhance the problem of all these relations between these human beings in the story of Wedekind, let's say, because we are all influenced also by social issues. We can't forget it somehow, even if you want to forget it, and people think they can forget it. So this kind of discrepancy, which already is in everybody of us, was a main topic for me. So in a way, I also did it like in the Brecht Lehrstücke. It's like a choir who brings in something you think it doesn't have anything to do, but actually it's very important. It's like a
bit like Greek theatre, where there's a choir commenting on what's going on. Yes?
But it's not like a choir which is really commenting, but it's like really kind of completely external somehow. You hear these speeches.
Yes.
It's like it's not in the it doesn't do, and it can do something in the brain of the audience.
My mother murdering me to have a life of her own. What would I say if I could speak about it? My father raising me to be a life that he owns. What can I say in this loneliness?
There's a history of contemporary opera tackling difficult, complex political issues, from Nixon in China to the death of Klinghoffer. And American Lulu is part of that history. Is there something about the form of opera that lends itself to tackling such complex issues?
In a way, I think opera engaging with a political context as well as our emotional lives is absolutely intrinsic to what the art form is. You know, from I think, through opera's history, you see an art form which has always engaged with social and political context. So you look at the operas of Verdi, for example, and they are very much about political change, about the sort of leadership which we want in our country, the sort of country which we want, as well as the sort of human beings which we aspire to be leaders of those countries. So in a way, I think opera has always had that marriage of context and emotional narrative. And I guess really that's where opera's value is, in that it offers us a way to understand political, cultural landscape emotionally. You know, above all, this is an art form about emotion.
Wouldn't it be better if I didn't answer that?
Seeing myself in the mirror, I wish I were a man. Married to me.
There is also a difference in this sense that you take Verdi or Wagner, and to a certain extent Mozart, they're giving voice to certain national aspirations. They're trying to create, form a national voice. Whereas today, it's much more questioning, critical, deconstructing political culture. Do you see that difference?
I think that is a difference, and I think that probably reflects our attitudes towards identity and towards nation. You know, I think no longer do we strive to build nation in the same way that happened in the 18th and 19th centuries. And I think we see the cultural sphere as one which very much is questioning identity, perhaps more than nationhood.
All life is in such horrendous disorder, my dearest Eleanor. Since break of day, I've been packing up bags, collecting cases and paints, and all of an excellent hotel for you. The owners are at Lantern.
American Lulu is a complex, contradictory work, just like the issues it addresses and the figure at the heart of the opera. Whether it succeeds in reworking Berg's original, whether it succeeds in throwing new light on the fraught issue of race and racism, whether it succeeds in making opera relevant to a new audience in a new age, whether that's a laudable aim for opera, all that is for you to decide.